3, 2,
That was too
1,
close!
go. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is a wonderful game, but with some extreme flaws. As someone who's never seen Indiana Jones and is on the younger side of the audience when it comes to the franchise, I purposely didn't do anything to further invest myself in order to get ready for the game. Instead, I want to see how someone of my generation would perceive this franchise. And in all honesty, it's average. Unless you're from the boomer or millennial generation, I frankly don't think this game is that good. And seeing all these reviews, I'm gonna have to argue the people who are giving this game a 9 or a 10 are heavily invested in the IP more so than the game itself, or haven't played many games at all. There are games just like this that are significantly worse in review scores, but let's get into why I think that is. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was developed by Machine Games, who had previously done the Wolfenstein games. They also wrote the story in-house alongside Todd Howard, who had the idea behind it. The game takes place during the first film, and the story is about, well, the Great Circle. After a break-in at Marshall College, Indy discovers the cat mummy he found had been stolen, and he's to discover why. And after some hijinks, he comes across a multitude of new faces along the way, with new co-partner Gina. And there's a lot more I could add, but if I'm being honest, I'd rather not, because the story is extremely intriguing, with lots of hints and foreshadowing, and I found it incredibly charming. If there's one thing that you should go into blindly, it's the story. And I know I said I wouldn't say more, but the main villain, Emmerich Voss, is perfect. He's not your stereotypical villain. To compare him, he's very much a Hugo Strange type, where under the exterior of being a straight-laced villain, he's multi-layered with lots of complexity, and every time he's on screen, he chews it up in such an entertaining way. Then there's Indy himself. If this is Indy as he is in the films, I see why people enjoy him. He's funny, charismatic, and overly good without being a white bread character. He's relentlessly determined to achieve his goals and seems multi-layered himself. But at that same time, there's no arc for his character. Maybe this is a problem, as the game has to be in line with the movies and has to be placed along the canon, but from the beginning to the end, he doesn't change a whole lot, and I don't love it. I feel like so much more could be done with him if this was an alternative universe or a different IP. And finally, then there's Gina, and I love her. She's great. At first I thought, oh boy, here comes the love interest, and was so ready to let her be a throwaway character, but she grew on me. As a character, she's nothing special, but that's what makes her so intriguing, is she's not this destinied character. She's neither plot relevant to the cat mummy. Instead, she has her own goals and needs, and the only way to achieve them is by Indy's help. Her AI isn't amazing, but it gets the job done. And how can I talk about the story and not go into the voice actors? Everyone does an incredible job, and Troy Baker as Indy is remarkably close, is uncanny. I went back and listened to what Harrison Ford used to sound like. Man, it's crazy. And how can I say something about voice actors and not mention Tony Todd? For most of the game, he just speaks Latin, but it's really cool, as I didn't even know it was him until 2/3 of the game. That being said, a bit of the story felt like it was being padded, with no real reason, as you never interact with certain characters ever again. Like, why is getting a camera important to the story? It's not like it adds to anything, and there's no side quest that adds to it or the world. Instead, it's a moment in the game where they instinctively tell you to go make money and come back and buy a camera, and then you can proceed with the story. But why? Just give me the device. And on top of that, some areas that you visit can overstay their welcome. Thankfully, they're not too long if you just focus on the story, but not all the areas are like that. And on the topic of padding, I wish we could have learnt more about the characters, as a few of them say something interesting, and I would have hoped we could have delved back into their past. I imagine it'll be DLC, but I don't love it. Otherwise, the story is fantastic. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 for the story alone. I see why people love Indy, and to be honest, seeing the reception to the story makes me wonder why people dislike the last 2 films. I might check the series out to find out why, but who knows. Anyway, let's get into the meat of the game. The gameplay, and I gotta say, the first 6 hours are incredible. You feel like Indy, the way he moves, the way he talks, the whip, the comedic combat, about every aspect is astoundingly well done. And knowing this is Machine Games, I shouldn't say I'm surprised, but I am. Going through the world, finding items, hidden areas, random secrets and puzzles about anywhere you go is insane. Every aspect of this game is designed to make you feel like Indy, with some, in my opinion, huge caveats. Like when you push past the 15-hour mark, after some time I really felt like the game was dragging on, as the systems built around it were too focused on being immersive and not to allow player expression. And what do I mean? Well, the game tries to be 2 things and doesn't commit. only going halfway with each system, the first of which is stealth. The stealth is unlike other games out there, and I enjoy how this was going for a more nuanced approach like Hitman, by finding different outfits where you can then use them to explore inaccessible areas. But unlike Hitman, where stealth is the main goal with systems in place to account for the hijinks that you'll make as Indiana, instead, this is the most subpar stealth game I've ever played, and it doesn't do anything to make it better. Instead, what you do in the beginning is essentially what you end up doing at the end. The only benefit of finding other outfits is being able to access areas that you can't, and to be able to freely walk around the camp without being detected. And that's super cool, but if you don't have an outfit, you have to then sneak around the camp without being detected. And those systems are whack as hell, as there's no way to hide when detected or to safely get away without initiating combat. The only worry you will ever have to face when wearing a costume is hiding from generals, but that's it. And in combat, while doing stealth, like any good stealth game, you can use any melee weapon to knock out an enemy, and then you can drag their body to hide it. But there's no reason to do this. While a random guard might see the body and they will call for others, the game is fairly forgiving in that everyone forgets in a small time frame, and even if you wanted to hide the body, it takes up stamina, and to drag the body around is not fast, and there's no real hiding spots where you can dump them. So it's more of a hassle to do that than not to do it. Thankfully, you don't ever really need to worry about stealth thanks to how inconsistent the AI is. But then you do, as well as sometimes there are times where you knock someone out and everyone knows you done the deed and the whole camp fights you. I can't tell how to tell when this is to happen, as there's no real indication to show what might happen. You kinda have to take a gamble. At the bottom left corner, there's a indicator showing when people see you, but there's no real indicator to show when guards can hear you or what they think might happen, and you can't rely on your senses as Indy to figure out what might happen. Instead, it's just random. The AI is a bit funky in that area. And there are even more problems with the stealth. This game was not designed for it, but then it was. I don't get it. It's so subpar, it sucks. There are no real systems in place or upgrades to make it better. Like, why is there not any tranquilizer darts or silencers for guns or literally any other type of stealth option available in other games? It'd be super cool if the whip could have been something like Batman, where you can use it to access different areas by hitting it against the wall or using it from further longer distances, even though it wouldn't make any sense. I would prefer a more arcadey stealth action style rather than what we get here, because this game allows for so many different approaches inside a camp, but you're really ever going to use one or two. Regardless, all of that would have been fine if stealth was minimum, but it isn't. 75% of the whole game is stealth heavy, and while you can go loud, the systems again aren't in place. Like, the best parts about combat is being able to go loud at any point, and the melee is fun. Knocking out and punching Nazis with any weapon, even your fist, is incredibly enjoyable, and seeing their bodies ragdoll and tumble is great. But that feeling only lasts for so long before you want to do anything else. The combat isn't that varied. Sure, you can whip people to take away the weapons, but overall all you can do in combat is throw or use any object that you might find, or fight people with your fists. Sure, you can use your whip, but all that does is take away enemy weapons. It's not all that useful. Like, I can think of an idea that's already more enjoyable. Let me whip a guy, take the weapon away from them, and then be able to use that weapon there and then. Why isn't that an upgrade you can unlock? And on top of that, while you can go shooty shooty bang bang, that's even worse, and I heavily advise against it. The gunplay is fairly basic, and none of the guns feel amazing. They all feel the same and there's no weight to them. And there are some really odd design decisions, such as how every costume you wear will have a different weapon, but everything else in the inventory is the exact same. The only problem this brings about is when in combat, you know on Indy he has 2 guns, but you can only use 1 gun at a time. This wouldn't be a problem if the ammo capacity for the guns weren't so low. If you were able to upgrade them to a higher standard, even more so than what you already can, it would have been so much better. On top of that, while you can pick up enemy guns and use them, a problem is that when it comes to replenishing ammo, you're screwed. You don't pick up bullets by simply walking over the same gun. Instead, you have to pick up the other gun that's the same gun as the gun that you currently have. Why? Just give me the ammo. It makes combat so much harder and tedious. Additionally, the enemies will never run out of ammo, so while you can, they don't. And when in the camp, after you fire once, the whole camp is alerted. So imagine what it's like when 30 guys with all infinite ammo are after you while you have a limited amount and then have to constantly pick up new guns every time you're out. It sucks. New information. Enemies have infinite ammo and you have to pick up the guns, right? But if you pick up the guns while they're using that gun, if you pick it up, you don't get a full stack of ammo again. You'll get whatever they used up, unless they were reloading, which sometimes when they do reload, you then just have no ammo regardless. It's so stupid. This is so stupid. How is this a thing? And it's only worse if you shoot them elsewhere where they can take up to a whole chamber to kill. And again, remember, you can't replenish ammo without picking up the same gun, and ammo is incredibly sparse. And it doesn't stop. Melee combat is so much easier, with hit detection working way better. Every 3 punches an enemy will go out, no matter the type, with a weapon or without. 3 hits usually knocks them out. Compared to a gun, it's insane. What's more, to add to the inventory problem and combat is how scattered throughout the map there is dynamite you can find, but you can only use it when you find it. You will never be able to store it and use it for a later time, but because of where the dynamite is stored, it's so far apart from where you think the action is going to occur, by the time you find it, you'll be done with everyone. And finding it isn't common. You have to go out of your way to find it. It makes no sense as there is storage space on Indie. I just don't understand these decisions. It's so stupid. And there are more tedious problems I have, but these are some of the bigger issues. My main overall issue with combat really is, this is Machine Games. Devs of Wolfenstein, what happened? This is genuinely some of the worst combat I've played in a big AAA game from veterans who are experts in this field. I get stealth being mediocre, but the first person shooting? How? It's clear this game had a big problem with sense of direction, as again 75% of it wants you to be stealthy, but after every area you're in a big action set piece. Unless Indie is all about stealth, this doesn't make any sense. It's clear that Indiana Jones is a action adventure movie with stealth being very minimum. So it's just a really weird choice that they would do what they did. And on top of that, I love Uncharted and Tomb Raider. Knowing their existence is thanks to Indiana Jones, it shows that those are completely different games compared to this. Those are action adventure games in line to the movies, I'm guessing, to what this game is, where it's trying to be two things and they fail both. Anyway, I should mention there are upgrades you can find, but you have to unlock them by opening chests or going through inaccessible areas and a few other ways too. But overall, the upgrades don't do much. You can beat the whole game with a bare minimum and nothing is all that different. All the health and stamina will be noticeable. Some of the aspects this game does do well, however, is puzzle solving. It's fantastic. There are so many different puzzles. Some where I would be trying to figure them out for 30 minutes where I would give up and end up googling the answers. And some where I would never want to find the answers but had fun solving the issue on my own. And the AI, unlike other games, rarely give me hints. Oftentimes I would be struggling with what to do, but I like that. It made figuring out puzzles satisfactory. And the platforming and locations you visit, the areas in which you go through are beautiful. It really outshines games like Tomb Raider, in my opinion, with how old and desolate areas are made to feel. The only problem I have with the world map is how the first area, the Vatican, is perfect for what you can do and where you can go. It never felt overly ambitious, but the further you get into the game, the worse the areas become. Egypt is much bigger than the Vatican, but more empty and spacious, taking longer to get between areas. And the final area I straight up didn't like. I hope the next game really takes into consideration map size. Also, checkpoints. They suck. Let me manually travel instead of this bullshit lamp thing. And another bullshit thing I hate about this game is let me manually save. None of this auto save with no way to replay a chapter nonsense. Anyway, that is it for me. I'm gonna give the gameplay a 5 out of 10. It's fine, but nothing satisfactory. As I said in the beginning, you'll enjoy this game more if you have a lack of video game experience or if you just enjoy indie, and that's perfectly fine. But for machine games, it kinda sucks. They can do better. Oh right, I said there are games like this. Cyberpunk 2077, Dishonored, Thief, Far Cry 3-4, Uncharted, Tomb Raider 2013. Check them out, they're very cool games, and I hope for a sequel. Wow, so after I've done this review, an article came out saying that Disney reportedly wants 2 more games, so let's go! I would hope Machine Games continue to make progress and takes feedback, and I would love a bigger world with maybe like animals and vehicles and just more stuff. It'll be super cool if they listen to feedback that's more action oriented and less stealth, but take care and see ya.